Workers at a Hyundai plant in Georgia describe a chaotic scene following a massive immigration raid. The crackdown, the largest so far on U.S. work sites, led to 475 arrests, most of them South Korean nationals. In early September, the Trump administration staged the largest workplace immigration raid in U.S. history at Hyundai's new electric vehicle battery plant in Georgia. Federal agents detained 475 people, a majority from South Korea. This factory is part of a $7 billion Hyundai Motor Group project announced in 2022, designed to create more than 8,000 American jobs. The raid came only weeks after Trump raised tariffs on global trade partners, insisting that companies move production to the United States to avoid penalties. Hyundai followed that policy, investing heavily in U.S. production. But now, the same project has become the target of the most aggressive immigration enforcement yet. Trump defended the raid as enforcement of U.S. law, while also stressing that foreign companies must train American workers if they want access to the U.S. market. The result has sent shockwaves through the foreign investment community. For decades, states like Georgia encouraged global companies to bring their factories and jobs to the U.S. That trust has now been shaken. Work at the Georgia plant was halted immediately. Subcontractors supplying technical expertise were sidelined, and sensitive installation work was interrupted. In projects of this size, analysts warn that every month of delay adds between 0.5% and 1% to costs. On Hyundai's $4.3 billion battery facility, that equals $21 to $43 million per month. A 2-month delay could surpass $80 million. These delays now threaten to push back production from late 2025 into 2026, straining the North American electric vehicle supply chain. Trump's policies, intended to protect American jobs, are now risking the very investments meant to create them. The arrest sparked a sharp reaction from South Korea. More than 300 of its citizens were among the detainees. The South Korean government even chartered flights to bring them home. Seoul's foreign minister traveled to Washington, calling the raid humiliating for a country that had pledged hundreds of billions of dollars in U.S. investment. Hyundai alone committed $26 billion through 2028. These investments were a direct response to Trump's tariff strategy, which pressured allies to shift production and capital into the United States. But the raid undercut that strategy, leaving foreign industry groups feeling betrayed. They acknowledge visa issues, but argue that U.S. rules make it nearly impossible to staff complex projects without specialized foreign labor. Trump's promise of "Made in USA" growth is colliding with the reality of global manufacturing. The Hyundai raid shows a deep contradiction in Trump's second-term agenda. Tariffs are used to push investment into America, but aggressive raids threaten the very projects those tariffs attract. Trump has also expressed skepticism toward electric vehicles, even as he demands that factories be built on U.S. soil. These mixed signals create costly uncertainty. Each month of delay is measured in tens of millions of dollars, while images of workers being led away in handcuffs resonate around the world. The Hyundai raid isn't just an immigration story. It's a warning that the intersection of Trump's tariffs and enforcement policies could undermine the economic strategy he claims to champion. For decades, Canadian steel has been vital to the U.S. auto supply chain. American automakers rely on Canadian mills for specialized grades of steel used to build millions of vehicles. Trump's tariffs, framed as a push to revive U.S. production, are instead pushing automakers toward thinner margins, layoffs, and rising costs.
Canada is pursuing a two-pronged strategy. On one side, it remains at the negotiating table, seeking relief through trade talks. On the other, it is shifting steel production toward housing construction, infrastructure, and defense, reducing reliance on the U.S. auto market. This move protects Canadian jobs while insulating its economy from political shocks south of the border. If Canada suddenly stops supplying steel to U.S. automakers, the impact would be devastating. In 2024, U.S. plants built over 10.5 million vehicles. Each vehicle requires roughly 800 to 900 kilograms of steel, with about 40% used for the body shell. That equals nearly 3.8 million tons of flat steel each year. Canada currently sends 3.2 million tons of flat-rolled steel to the US, with about 40% tied to the auto sector, approximately 1.28 million tons. If that supply disappeared, production of nearly 3.5 million vehicles would be at risk. Even if US and Mexican producers covered half the gap, there would still be shortages affecting up to 2 million vehicles. When supply tightens, prices rise. Auto-grade steel could jump by $150 to $300 per ton. For the 0.36 tons needed per car body, that's an extra $80 to $200 per vehicle. Across the industry, the total impact could reach $1 to $2 billion within months. These numbers reveal just how much leverage Canada holds and how vulnerable the US auto sector could become if tariffs push the relationship to the breaking point. Trump's strategy, meant to strengthen American industry, has exposed a dangerous weakness instead. On August 1st, the Trump administration raised tariffs on Canadian goods not covered by the USMCA. Steel and aluminum were hit hardest, facing a 50% levy, the highest among all sectors. This move shook the foundation of North America's auto supply chain. Canadian auto parts exports to the US have already dropped by 25% to 35% due to uncertainty alone. Many companies froze cross-border orders simply out of fear of future tariffs. In Toronto, manufacturers like Conquest Steel saw US business evaporate almost overnight. Rather than retaliate immediately, Canada is pivoting inward, focusing on domestic production and long-term stability. Prime Minister Mark Carney has emphasized resilience over revenge, encouraging companies to diversify and reduce dependence on the US market. Meanwhile, US automakers are facing surging costs. The Ford F-Series, America's top-selling vehicle, relies heavily on aluminum from Quebec. With tariffs doubling, vehicle prices could rise by thousands of dollars per unit. Industry projections warn of increases as high as $9,000 for certain models. Trump's trade moves have become a high-stakes gamble. While Canada adapts and strengthens its economy, American automakers remain locked into disrupted supply chains with no easy alternatives. This is no longer just a trade dispute. It is a test of economic leadership, and the pressure is mounting. In mid-August, the White House expanded tariffs even further. More than 400 goods containing steel and aluminum were added to the list. From car parts and electronics to soda cans and household appliances, importers were given no grace, period. Products already on ships instantly became more expensive when the policy took effect. For American consumers, this means higher prices on everyday essentials. For companies, it creates chaos, as no one knows which goods will be targeted next. The impact is already showing in the numbers. Domestic steel prices are nearly 9% higher than a year ago. Aluminum is up more than 13%. These costs ripple directly into cars, appliances, and groceries. Small and mid-sized manufacturers cannot absorb the increases, forcing layoffs and cutbacks. Entire communities built around manufacturing are now at risk. Canada, however, has taken a very different approach. Ottawa responded to U.S. tariffs with its own 25% counter tariffs on $30 billion worth of U.S. goods. It also introduced limits on foreign steel imports and ensured Canadian companies receive priority for government projects. Financial support was prepared for major producers like Rio Tinto to safeguard jobs and stabilize supply chains. The contrast is clear. In the U.S., tariffs are driving up costs and creating instability. In Canada, they are being used strategically to strengthen domestic industries. Trump's trade policies were meant to bring jobs back home. Instead, they are raising prices for families, hurting manufacturers, and unsettling global markets. Canada, by contrast, is turning crisis into opportunity, showing how resilience can be built even amid intense economic pressure. This is USA News Report. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.